Boker Tov. Do we start at 9 or 9:15?
9.
All right. Wonderful.
And we ended 11.
All right. That's not true. But I appreciate all you want to learn so much that you're willing to go to 11. Yes. The learning's so good it goes to 11. Okay. For those of you who know that reference. Boker Tov. Parshat Tzav. For those who do, I know you're regulars here, most of you. If you do not have a Tanakh, a subscription with you, they are available in the book truck over there, so feel free. We'd love to have you follow along. You don't have to. You are not required to. You can just listen, participate as you like, but it's nice to be able to follow along. Would love to begin with our bracha, our blessing before Torah study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, God, sovereign of the universe, in your holiness. You command us to get busy with Torah, to study Torah. La'asok in Hebrew means to get do business. Esek in Hebrew means business. This is we're doing our, but it's good business we want to engage with, right? So esek, it's engagement, it's connection. All right, and amazing, right, that we are commanded to do this, and yet we're here. We are giving our free will offering today by coming to learn on our own because we want to, of our own volition. So this is actually a voluntary offering that we are making. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, this week's portion. This is a voluntary offering we are making that we are commanded to do. Is that possible? All of us feel guilty if we don't come. Yeah, well, that's the proper Jewish way. Absolutely. So, this is our second parsha within the book of Leviticus, also known as Vayikra. So I want to take a few moments, even though last week was our first portion of Leviticus, just to give an overview of Leviticus. Pretty short, bekitzur, but I just want to give you a little bit overview, and then we're going to go right into Tzav. Leviticus, named after Levi or Levi, the tribe, the son of Leah and Jacob. So there's a whole presumption here, and there's a conceptual idea here that God's world should be fundamentally harmonious. And to preserve it, everything should have its assigned place. Think Bereshit. Think Genesis. 6 days, everything in its place. So Leviticus is addressing what we do when boundaries are crossed, be they of the body, be they of time, be they of space, between sacred and the non-sacred, between life and death. Rituals are a main point of Leviticus, and rituals restore equilibrium. And this is a major part of who we are as Jews. We do ritual. It's part of our curriculum. So while we might not engage in the same sacrifices that happened back in the ancient Near East and further on, we are a people of ritual. And it is our sort of lifeline as Jews. It's our way to connect with our faith, and it's our way to connect with others who also engage in these very same rituals. Okay. Let me know if you can't hear me. I usually try to project, but if you can't. Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you, Jordan, advocate for streamers. Welcome, streamers. Okay. Hey, and I also want to take this time. The bagels were sponsored this morning by Margie and Joe. Thank you, Margie and Joe. appreciate you. Margie Moskowitz, Joe Canfer. Yeah, thank you. They're not here? Yes, I was like, I know Margie. Okay, so, sorry? That was the, I thought it was the bagel angel, like, just flying and, okay. Okay, rituals restore the equilibrium, right? Okay, so it's our way of connecting. My family just went through this period of Shiva. It's so smart because you're scripted. You know what to do. It gives you a sense of stability and a sense of safety all the way until the end of the 7 days when the mourners walk around the block, which my wife and her brother did. And it was through that process where they talked about the wholeness of the process, the good, the hard, all the sticky stuff that comes with, right, with death. It's never clean. It's never completely clean. All the family members who came in, all of that. It's like a kitchen sink of experiences that you mash together, and at the end of 7 days, you process it all. This kind of salad of experiences. So, ritual is the container. It keeps us all together. The human body, the sanctuary, and the community each constitute a microcosm of the universe in its sacred aspect. Each reflects and has an impact upon the larger integrated whole. Think about that. The human body, the sanctuary, and the community are a microcosm of the universe. That's why this stuff is really important. It's not just happening in our little neck of the woods. This work that we do, the rituals that we perform, are supposed to be reflective of a greater, more, I don't want to say perfect world, but a more whole world. Now, there are times where the Israelites engage in these rituals and times where the priests do, but it is a democratic process. God is holy, and we all have access in some way to God's holiness. Not going to get too wonky about scholarship, but there's the P source and the H source, and the P source is the priestly source. H source is the holiness code. And they feature in Leviticus in different parts. First section of Leviticus is mostly ascribed to the P source. The second part of Leviticus is to the H source. Animal sacrifices were integral to most recorded worship practices in the ancient Near East. Something that might feel icky to many of us was de rigueur back in the day. Animals were meant to serve us and to serve God. These practices carried all the way into the Common Era from the ancient Near East. So ancient Near East, we're talking about 3,500 years ago, 4,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, and all the way into the 2,000 years ago, sacrifices were happening. There are some communities and precincts where this still happens, namely the Samaritans in Israel, and they dress up in priestly garb, and they still do these rituals. Greek Orthodox, it's very, it's not the norm anymore. Probably a good thing. But the practice of sacrifice was a way to approach the gods. And I say gods not because I'm trying to engage in any kind of idol worship. Gods, lowercase g, because this was not just a Jewish ritual way of engaging with God. This happened throughout the ancient Near East in different societies, different tribal communities, different religious customs engaged in animal sacrifice. This was pervasive. The idea was that those gods need to be fed. Gods get hungry, like human beings. Enter anthropomorphism. Enter this idea that we don't really know what God wants. So the next best thing is we figure, what do we want? And that must be what God wants. We don't know enough to know what God wants. This is an effort to reach God. This is a humble and open-hearted act to say, God, I don't know what you want, but our shamans and our priests, they say this is what you want. And many people probably had doubts about whether this is really what God wants. But we did it out of the goodness of the heart. And to say, this is my offering to you. I am unworthy, but I'm going to offer something that's important to me. So the idea was that gods need to be fed and propitiated, seek their seek their goodwill. And life and fertility are gifts from the gods, and such humans must offer something in return. Thank you, God, for what I've received, and this is the recompense. This is the payment. The idea was also to counter human sacrifice by using domesticated animals and channeling the human tendency for violence through ritual animal sacrifice. A way to acknowledge that human beings have animal instincts, and so violent instincts. And this is a way of not killing other people, hopefully, but using those instincts in the service of God. Steve.
I understand sort of in a logical way what you're saying, but aren't the people who practice animal sacrifices just like us? Maybe we would be, are we saying we would be less violent if we had animal sacrifices today? I have a tough time
Right.
squaring that circle.
Sure.
It seems nice, and it seems like, oh, we're so superior to them, we don't need animal sacrifices, but what has changed?
Yeah. I have no counter. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Humans, beings on this earth, the proclivity is to move towards violence. And it is perhaps one of our greatest challenges is to subdue violence and not to consider it to be the norm of just how we do things, right? That it's like kind of, it's our Darwinian exercise of, that's how it works. War is hell. The stronger win. Brian.
So, does going to Shabbat services satisfy that? Talking about satisfying.
Your rabbi says yes. You should always go to Shabbat services. It does satisfy God. That is, those are our offerings. These are our offerings. And the prayers reflect the nature of those original offerings. If you were sitting in B'nai Yeshurun, if you were sitting at Green Road Synagogue right now at services, which, in real time is happening, they are reading at the beginning of the service the Korbanot. These are the prayers for ritual animal sacrifice. They're still reading those prayers, even though we're not actually practicing the sacrifices themselves. So, absolutely, I would say, the Reform movement excised the Korbanot. So excised that part of the the prayer book, but I would say absolutely it's bimkom, as we'd say in Hebrew. It is in place of, in lieu of the actual sacrifices. Paul?
Yeah, I understand that there are a variety of different animal sacrifices, everything from doves to goats, all the way to rams, bulls, etc. And I understand that each sacrifice was for a different level of, or each sacrifice was for a specific level of sin offering. But I often wondered, was there anything that was more, more egalitarian in that even in those days there were different economic spectrums?
Yeah.
So was there consideration ever given to if a rich person was to offer
Sure.
sin, what do they, how does the pauper act when they expiate themselves?
Absolutely. There's sliding scale kind of thing. And there were non-animal offerings, and that meant that they were less costly. So absolutely, flour and even in some communities, hair was offered. Right, that's the whole. That was the whole Samson idea, that he was rendered weak when his hair was shorn, and so hair was offered different. Yep, there were lots of different ways in which you could connect with God. Jack? I don't know.
Yeah, you mentioned something before about Shiva,
Yeah.
and how it helps a person resolve what's going on, and helps them get over something, and it's a ritual, right?
Yes.
It's a ritual. And at the end of the Shiva, it's almost like a completion, never really completed, but there is something that ends it and you can go on. Well, perhaps when you go to synagogue, and you pray, it's not only to God, but it's part of the ritual and part of a completion that you go through yourself to satisfy inner needs. You go every week, I go every week to temple, and it's the same thing over and over again. And it's a certain ritual that gives you comfort, okay? Not only to satisfy the God, but to satisfy the individual.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's when you said, Jacqueline, when you said that it was like over and over and over again, you do the same thing. There's something meditative about being able to do that. And the actor Jesse Eisenberg, who is Jewish, he says his wife is also Jewish, likes to go to temple. He doesn't like to go to temple so much, but sometimes he accompanies her. And he said, there's something boring about going to temple. And he was just being earnest. And but he said, there's also something very comforting about that boredom. And about that feeling of just knowing what's to come. You don't have to be entertained every moment, every minute, but rather it's something familiar, and you can just be. So I want to keep moving. The Hebrew word for sacrifice, korban, I mentioned it earlier, korbanot, which is plural. Korban is singular. Likrov in Hebrew, korban comes from the Hebrew word to mean to grow close, so to be close. So a korban, an offering to God, is not simply an offering. It actually means I want to physically draw close, spiritually draw close to you, God. So I'm going to make a korban. I'm going to make a near offering, an offering near to you. Public sacrifice, as you shared, Jackie, that helps bind the community by providing a common meal that was made scarce and costly to other people. It functioned like a neighborhood barbecue. So the idea of coming together, and it was a public thing to do. I think maybe Rabbi Berlin mentioned that last night, some point, that the sacrificial offerings were public, while in some faith communities in the ancient Near East, it was a private exercise for no one to see. This was a democratized effort for everybody to witness. Even if they weren't engaged in prayer, they were witnessing how it was conducted. So that's a little bit of Vayikra overview. But let's go to Tzav now. Tzav, does it sound like a word you know? Tzav. I know it's mitzvot, mitzvah. So I know it doesn't quite sound right because you're waiting for the meats part, but tzva, okay, same root. Tzadi, vav, hey. Okay, so mitzvah. Tzav is imperative, and it means, it's a tzivui in Hebrew, it means a charge or a command, right? So mitzvah is a commandment. Tzav is command, I command you. It's specifically addressed to the priests in this Torah portion. Last week it was addressed to the Israelites in general. Viv.
I just heard what you said.
Yes.
Tzivui.
Tzivui. Yes. Nice. Absolutely. I didn't even think about that. You're right. So tzivui is the Hebrew word for the grammatic principle of an imperative. Tzivui. Mitzvah. Same root. I didn't even think about it. You're right. Good. Okay. Imperative. You need to do it now. It's a charge. It's a command. Okay. So it's a charge to Aaron and his sons, and that's what this week's portion is really focused on, is Aaron and his sons and the ordination of Aaron through the hand of Moses. So the first section regards instructions for the priest portions from sacrificial rituals. This is a little dry, but we're going to make it really exciting. Second section is it records the ordination of the priests and the sacrificial system in professional priesthood resembled other ancient cultures. All right. There are only male priests that are recognized, although we don't really know that there were actually females who had certain roles in the community that were like the priests. The scholars surmise that women very much probably helped to construct and weave the fabrics that went on the vestments for all of the priests. And some of that, there's an investiture today. You ever heard the word investiture? Think vestments, investiture. That's right. There's an investiture. It's like a ceremony where you place certain vestments on somebody. Okay. Let's go. Chapter 6. 1 to 6 is the burnt offering. So the priests have a uniform, and they God speaks to Moses and commands Aaron and says, this is the burnt offering, the Torat Olah, the offering that goes up and is burned on the altar all night and morning. What do we have that resembles that? Is it on today?
No, it's not always on.
Is it? I think it is today. It looks like it's... Sometimes. Depends if it likes us. God's with us. It's like the pillar of fire. Okay. So, and yes. So, and of course, in verse 6, it says that this is the Eish Tamid. We call this the Ner Tamid, the eternal light. It's the same kind of idea. This is the eternal flame. So this is this idea that the burnt offering is kept going on the altar, right? This is, for us, as we know, it's a very powerful idea that we have to keep feeding feeding the coals, feeding the fire, keeping it going. That's our responsibilities to keep giving. 2, chapter 6, 7, verse 7. The meal offering, which is mincha, offering flour and oil, turning the smoke on the altar as a pleasing odor to God, eaten in the tent of meeting, in the Ohel Moed. And the meal offering is of the priest's anointment. And those of the priestly caste prepare it for one another. Just kind of this beautiful fellowship of preparing this process of ritual one for the other. Purgation offering, starting on verse 17, is the purging offering to cleanse the sanctuary from visible and invisible impurities that contaminate it. For ritual impurity and perhaps unintentional sins, anything that touches its flesh, the animal's flesh, shall be holy. The garments get bespattered in blood, and they wash it in the sacred precinct. And even when they wash it in an earthen vessel in which the linen was boiled, and that earthen vessel should be broken after the kind of bloody, tainted linen has been cleansed. But a copper vessel can be scoured and rinsed with water. Chapter 7, we have the Torat Ha'asham, the guilt offering. I like to call it the reparation offering, which is a better way of calling it because it is this idea of restoration. It aims to restore the system to a normative wholeness, restitution and compensation against God's property or others. There's slaughter, there's blood dashed on the sides of the altar, and all its fat shall be offered. So all of that is part of these offerings. So any particular comments on that before we move to the next piece about the offerings? Yes, Arthur.
I'll jump in. So, I think I always find these passages very challenging because we're trying to make continuity between what purpose the sacrifices are and the same purposes we see today. The sacrifices themselves are so different from what we do.
Yeah.
There seems to be this gulf, a huge chasm.
Yes.
And, for instance, I can't imagine, although a lot of people today do imagine bringing this back, I can't imagine doing this. But, what comes to mind is there are certain pieces in modern life that keep this practice actually alive. So I think about my Christian friends and community in the Catholic Church. There's a priest with vestments, and there's a blood sacrifice
Sure.
with communion. There's a lot of aspects of this ritual that are practiced regularly. But on our side, there seems to be a very strict prohibition against coming close to this, because when you think about the Seder is really a recreation of a sacrificial rite.
Right.
15 steps, very orderly. It's called an order. Seder.
Yes.
And at the center of it is the paschal sacrifice. But all these steps are taken to make sure you don't actually do the paschal sacrifice. You come right up to it. It's on the plate. You're not supposed to eat out of it. The afikomen is like, and the sandwich, and all the sandwich, come very close to eating the sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And there's language in there saying this is the sacrifice.
Shank bone.
Shank bone.
Yeah, it's like
But it's almost like we're teased about it. We come very close.
walking the line. This is what we did do. This is a homage to what we did. We don't do this anymore, but boy, we're really like dancing. We're dancing with this ritual.
That's one
Yeah.
sacrifice you brought home. You didn't go to the temple. You brought the lamb to the temple. But once it was slaughtered at the temple, you brought it home
Yeah.
to eat. So we're doing what people did back in temple days
Yeah.
on Seder night. But I'm just curious how one branch of monotheism really practices a lot of the sacrificial culture, and we who originated it are really have taken great pains to not do any of that. We don't have to have rabbinical robes, but we don't call them priestly vestments. And we've really kept ourselves distant from it.
Yeah, it's we have so many visuals and imagery that connect with it. Thinking about the Torah and how we dress it with the breastplate,
Yeah.
right? And we dress it as the priest dressed.
Yeah, that's right.
So there is a lot of connections to this. When you're talking about the Christian faith, right? The blood, the body of Jesus, right? And I remember going to church with my Catholic family. So I'd visit my cousin and his family in Manhasset, New York, Long Island, and I'd spend the weekend. And my aunt was incredibly religious. My uncle was not. And so he would drive my aunt, me, and my cousin to the church and then drop us off. And then he was the chauffeur. And when we would sit in the pews, I always remember the communion moment. And my cousin, I wasn't going to do it anyway. My cousin said, "You stay here." And they would go up, and I was fascinated by these moments of parishioners either sticking their tongue out or putting their hands out and waiting for this offering, this wafer that represents the body of Christ, as they would call it. And then the wine and the blood is the blood of Christ, as they would call it. And so, yes, but there are, Protestant wings of Christianity that have not adopted that specific kind of ritual. They use sometimes pita, and they don't necessarily have communion in that same way. But we do edge up close to it. We do edge up. What is that about? Why do we have to do that? It's like the rabbis persuade us to keep it in our sights. So the rabbis persuade us to put the Passover sacrifice on the Seder plate to remind us of the avodah, of this service of ritual. And as I said, in other congregations, they are reading prayers that evoke these ritual sacrifices. So one reason why this happens and why we stay close to it might not be relevant to Reform Jews, but there are individuals, there are Jews in this world who believe that the third temple will someday be restored. And these sacrifices will once again come into fashion. We will restore all of this. There will be priests in Jerusalem. Okay. So what we've adopted is a kind of a theological idea and a ritual idea that we are holding it all at bay. And that's why those prayers have actually remained in the prayer book. And by the way, that's why the services in the Orthodox and Conservative movement on Saturday mornings or any days are longer in the mornings, because we have all of those sacrificial readings. So yes, we're dancing. We're certainly dancing with it. It's a bit of a tease, but there's clearly in those movements they resolve that this is something. It's in the parking lot, but we're going to visit that parking lot every day and make sure we remind ourselves that this is the aspiration, perhaps, or at least, and maybe the conservative movement, which considers itself a dynamic form, they would call themselves a dynamic form of Judaism or a stream of Judaism, where they're kind of dynamically engaging with halakha, is that by reading those prayers about the sacrifices, we are some way getting in touch with our ancestors. So maybe we don't even have to reenact those sacrifices, but there's something of value to even raise them up, to even talk about them. There's something of value. We're recalling what our ancestors did And maybe, for some reason, that brings a level of holiness to our lives. The Reform movement was very, very radical in that way at the time to excise that piece. We said, maybe we don't need a third temple at all. Maybe that's not the aspiration. Steve?
I think we've been talking about ritual. And in some sense, our rituals perform a kind of rite of passage, meaning we enter in one state and we exit in a different state.
Think mikvah.
Mikvah, but
Right.
when we think about ritual and possibly prayer, I'm thinking about the phrase, he who is a better person after prayer, his prayers have been answered. It's sort of the same idea. All of these, whether it's prayer or animal sacrifice, the idea is you are transformed, your beauty recognizes you in a different status. It's one way of saying whatever happened in the past is in the past, and I'm going to move forward. So I think many of these sacrifices sort of function in that way. Otherwise, these unintentional sins just sort of weigh on the person. And this is a way to
Yep.
say, I've gone through this process, I'm a new person, those things don't mean anything to me.
I think it's very accurate. It's a boundary. You're crossing a boundary. Say, I'm now, right, there's tahor and tameh. I am pure, I am impure. And these are the things you can do to make yourself pure. By the way, speaking of prayer and how we're changed, we think about prayer as praying to something or someone or some entity. But the Hebrew word for prayer is lehitpalel, which is reflexive, which means that we're not necessarily praying to ourselves, but we are praying with ourselves, through ourselves. It's not simply a transaction. And while this may seem a little bit more transactional, I'd like to think that some folks who are bringing their best sacrifices were also feeling, even if the priest did it on their behalf, because they would stand apart and watch the priest do it, that by just being in proximity, there was something really powerful about personal. It was a personal transformation that happened. It wasn't just to God. It wasn't just a transaction. It's the same thing today. Our prayer should not be transactional. It should be transformative. It should be reflexive. So let's look at the Torah Asham in chapter 7 aims to restore the system to a normative wholeness. There's a restitution and compensation. And it's messy. There's blood. And the fat is offered. There's a sense of, there's a lot going on. Again, think about the Shiva process. And all the people in your family come together. And it's messy. By the way, just as a rabbi, when I sit and I speak with the family before the funeral, and they tell me about their loved one, it's sometimes messy. And it happens to be that this brother doesn't get along with this sibling. And I'm hearing this story that's different from what this person told me about the very same individual. And afterwards, I'm grabbed by one of the siblings and said, "Thank you, Rabbi, for meeting with us, but the person that everybody talked about in that room is not the person I experienced. I'm so very sorry." It's messy. It's messy. And but what I'm striving to do is create a sense of peace for the family. Let's talk about peace, because that's a thematic thread that I want to share today. And that's the part in chapter 7 of the well-being sacrifice, which is called shlamim. So, shalom, shalem, shlemut, they're all have a root connected to the same idea. Shalom meaning, shalem meaning, shlemut meaning. Yeah, maybe shalem is complete, maybe shlemut is wholeness. Is there a difference between peace, completeness, and wholeness? Let's just talk a little bit about that for a second, because what would be the difference? Because peace, we think about it a certain way, right? Completeness, and then wholeness. What does that mean? How do we distinguish? Can we distinguish? Yeah.
I don't know, I just feel like in English the word peace feels like the absence of war, like it's hard to define it without that
Right.
word being connected to it, but I don't know if you think of it more of a sense of like internal tranquility and feeling at one with yourself, which is also kind of a sense of completeness.
Yeah. There's it goes so much deeper than, peace.
Yeah.
Like, that like a Coca-Cola commercial. I'd like to teach the world. Right? It makes that is a sort of a very surface idea of peace. But yeah, some inner tranquility.
I was thinking that when something is not complete,
Yeah,
there's a restlessness to it.
sure.
There's a reaching toward something, we might not even know what. And then when that missing piece shows, it's like the Kushner thing. Right? He talks about how each of us is a jigsaw puzzle. And when you meet somebody, you might have the piece that completes that puzzle. It's well, peace and peace.
Yeah. Very nice. Well put. So let's look at the chapter 7, verse 11. This is the ritual, the sacrifice of the well-being. Okay? So this is the sacrifice. Zevach hashlamim. The well-being. The sacrifice of well-being. The sacrifice of peace. The sacrifice of wholeness. One who offers it for thanksgiving shall offer together with the sacrifice of thanksgiving unleavened cakes with oil. Sounds good, sounds familiar, it's very timely. Unleavened cakes with oil mixed in, unleavened wafers spread with oil, and cakes of choice flour with oil mixed in. Well soaked. This offering with cakes of leavened bread added shall be offered along with one's thanksgiving sacrifice of well-being. These well-being offerings are, just breaking from the text for a second, a peace offering, a voluntary offering. These express gratitude for God's blessings, provisions, deliverance from danger. Okay, we keep going. 14. Out of this the person shall offer one of each kind as a gift to God. It shall go to the priest who dashes the blood of the offering of well-being. And the flesh of the thanksgiving sacrifice of well-being shall be eaten on the day that it is offered. None of it shall be set aside until morning. You have to eat it all in one fell swoop. This is a free will offering, a community offering, a votive offering. Yes?
So that particular commandment is in the Seder, because you're not supposed to, you have to eat the Pesach sacrifice before the morning.
Yeah.
And so that's the Afikomen bit.
Yep.
The complete consumption of sacrifice. So the Afikomen is actually a fulfillment of this
Yeah.
commandment.
Yes. The Passover Seder is not done until you do it. You really can't. There is a statute of limitations. You can't wait.
But it's based on the fact
Yeah.
that sacrifice, just like this says, you
Yeah.
can't eat the sacrifice after a certain time.
Yep.
You can't eat the Pesach sacrifice after a certain time.
Yep. There's a,
That's right.
and it's right. This is a moment you can't extend it. If, however, the sacrifice offered is a votive or a freewill offering, it shall be eaten on the day that one offers the sacrifice, and what is left shall be eaten on the morrow. What is then left of the flesh of the sacrifice shall be consumed in fire on the third day. All right. If any of the flesh of the sacrifice of well-being is eaten on the third day, it shall not be acceptable. It shall not count for the one who offered it. It is an offensive thing. And the person who eats of it shall bear the guilt. Flesh that touches anything impure shall not be eaten. It shall be consumed in fire. And as for other flesh, only one who is pure may eat such flesh. All right. But the person who in a state of impurity eats flesh from God's sacrifices of well-being, that person shall be cut off from kin. When a person touches anything impure, be it human impurity or an impure animal or any impure creature, and eats flesh from God's sacrifice of well-being, that person shall be cut off. Pretty strong language. Karet. Cut off means ostracized, infertile maybe, buried apart from one's ancestors, denied the reunification that marks a full life. So, this is this shlemut offering. The shlemim offering, this offering of completeness. How does being complete square with this? That you suddenly you're impure. If you're impure, you can't actually be buried with your kin. So there's a sense of imbalance that completeness requires certain things. So what I wanted to do, in light of shlemim and shlemut and shalom, I wanted to walk you through some ideas of shalom, and there's so much more in this Torah portion. And let's just go a little bit further before I hand this out. Let's go to 28. I love this in 28. And God spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to the Israelite people thus: the offering of God to God from a sacrifice of well-being must be presented by the one who offers that sacrifice of well-being to Adonai. One's own hands shall present God's offerings by fire. It shall be one's own hands. The breast and the thigh go to the priest, and it is their due for the priests. It is their perk." That's what you get when you're a priest. Your livelihood is actually through your work, and your food comes from the sacrifices themselves. And that is eaten publicly in community. It creates a sense of connection to each other. So, all right. Can I have somebody help me pass these things out? Thank you very much. All right. Thank you. Yes.
So I just wanted to make a comment about wholeness versus complete.
Yes.
It seems to me that wholeness is different from that. If you have a quantity, a physical quantity, wholeness means you have all of it.
Yes.
Completeness, it seems to me, is temporal. So it involves when. So that's, I think that's the difference between being whole and being complete. One is time, the other is physical space.
Interesting.
Complete in the sense of finished, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. And what does I always think about wholeness or shlemut or completeness. Like, what does it truly mean to be complete? The sacrifice of shlemim when you offer it, does it create completeness? Like, what does completeness mean? What does wholeness mean? Is it when one is completely at peace? What goes into the recipe of wholeness and completeness? That's what I'm kind of looking at and thinking about. Can wholeness and completeness be imperfect? I see some heads nodding, right? I'm kind of pushing against the idea that peace is something that is perfect. But maybe peace and completeness and wholeness is not perfection. Can something feel complete and finished, but not perfect? Do you know what I'm saying? Can anybody have a reaction to it? Like, tell me something that can be complete, whole, but not perfect.
Well, I was just thinking about this. In Arabic, they have the same root. Salam is where it comes from.
Sure.
But the word Islam is related to the same root. It means to submit,
Uh-huh.
an act of submission. And similarly, Muslim is one who submits, which to me also relates to a sense of completeness, because it's the idea of like accepting that you are imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of brings you to a state of perfection or wholeness.
Love it. Love it. Go ahead, Candy.
The word that comes to mind for me is satisfying, and there's sometimes a moment when you're happy just to be,
Yeah.
and where you are in the moment, and you're not looking ahead or behind, but just to be.
Yep.
It's kind of an Eastern, I think, feeling or objective. And it comes sometimes from meditation, which can help you feel that way. And it's just equally satisfying as to think about completeness or wholeness.
Not wrapped up in a bow, right? So, an image
It's a satisfying feeling of the moment.
of just being in a moment, okay, just being in a time, and recognizing that even in that moment there's imperfection. So, to use the meditation idea, there's one concept in meditation that you're a rock in a stream. You're a rock in a stream. I come with my own soundtrack. Okay. All right. You're a rock in a stream. And there's water going over the rock. And the water is sometimes the stuff, the grief, the sadness, the pain. But you're the stone, and the stone stays stationary. And that you are more than the grief. And the grief is just a visitor. It's just moving through. And, but it's part of you. It's part of the life. It's not part of you necessarily, but it's part of life. So wholeness and shleimut does not have to be perfection. It could be a settledness with an imperfect world. A settledness with stuff. Go ahead, Brian.
Just going to say, it seems to some degree that sigh of relief we feel. It's not perfect,
Yeah.
but you're feeling better.
Right. It's okay. And you can even hold the idea that there's lots of stuff that's going around. There's a storm that could be even going around us, but there's some kind of contentment in knowing that I'm not going to be swept up in that storm. And that that storm is life. Life is not necessarily. I don't buy into life being good or bad. I think it's just Sometimes it feels unfair, but I think things happen, and it's not always, it's not evenly distributed. Pain and grief is not evenly distributed. We know that. We look at the world. But it is the world. It's always been the world. So shlemut, shalom, in its perfect sense, may never be able to be achieved. I'm sorry, the rabbi's saying that. That's not like very inspirational. But what hopefully is inspirational is that within that we can feel a sense of shlemut even with the messiness. So hang on for a second, look at the first page that I shared with you. Vayikra Rabbah. We're going to focus on Vayikra Rabbah, just a couple of pieces from Vayikra Rabbah, which is a midrash based specifically on the book of Leviticus. And this idea of all of these offerings leading up to the peace offering, look at the bottom part here. Remember, we just went through all the offerings. Recall them? Burnt offering, meal offering, purgation offering, guilt offering, or reparation offering. And then it ends with the well-being offering, the shlemim, the offering of peacefulness, wholeness. Why is the peace offering last? Because it has many types. Rabbi Shimon said, this dish of mixed fruits and nuts is served last. I love this. Okay? Why? By the way, I love the dish, by the way, is if you're a Hebrew reader, okay? So, Velama shlamim ba'achrona. Why is the peace offering last? Sheyesh ba minim arbe. There are many parts to it. Amar Rabbi Simon. Rabbi Simon says, Hada grazmita. Sounds like an Aramaic word. Ena ba ela ba'achrona. This dish of mixed fruits and nuts is served last. I guess they call it grazmita. Does not sound like a Hebrew word. Grazmita, probably Aramaic, something taken from Greek. Grazmita. I think of it like, you ever make a salad, call it the kitchen sink salad? This is like everything, right? So everything in the dish. The mixed nuts. Why? It is because it has many types. So too, why is the peace offering last? Because it has many types. Blood and fats to the altar, the breast and the thigh to the priest, the hide and the flesh to the owners. Right? It's very messy. Rabbi Shimon says, one who is complete brings a peace offering, but one in acute mourning does not bring a peace offering. There is this period called aninut between when somebody dies and when they're buried. And that's this piece they're talking about. When you're an onen and you're in this like limbo stage, you can't find the peace. So then there's a whole exercise around Gadol HaShalom. What is great peace? So I want to talk to you today a little bit with the time we have is really about like, what is real peace? What is shlemut? What is completeness? What does that really mean? What does that feel like? And it's like not in the sentimental, cheesy idea of peace, but in the imperfect, uncomfortable concept of peace. Jackie.
Yeah, can't we say peace and completeness is subjective to the individual? If you have, I'm not a scientist, but if you have a scientist who is working with numbers,
Yes.
perhaps there will be a period where there's completeness. That will not be subjective, it's objective. So I think a lot of completeness it's the individual, whatever they consider to be complete. What I consider to be complete, you may not. So I think it's subjective. I don't think we have an absolute answer to that.
Well, very interesting. So, right. I only want for you to be at peace. Why aren't you at peace? How am I supposed to know what your peace is?
The only way you know is if I tell you I'm at peace. The only way you know is if I tell you something is complete. I mean, I think back to 15, 20 years ago when we couldn't finish our Seder because we couldn't find the Afikomen.
Right?
Okay?
Yes.
Then we finally figured out what happened to the Afikomen.
What happened?
We saw the German Shepherd, and she looked at us, and she walked away with her tail down and her ears down, and she ate the Afikomen.
She searched for the Afikomen, just like everybody else. And by the way, my all-time favorite Passover story is when I was a kid. We used to go over a friend's house for Seder, and all the kids went to look for the Afikomen. I said, I found it. So I found Afikomen. It was on a bookshelf, wrapped in a napkin, as it usually is, and it had lots of dust on it. The leader of the house says, you did find the Afikomen. That was the one we couldn't find last year. So they never were able to finish their Seder, Arthur. They never fulfilled the mitzvah. And by the way, I tried the Afikomen from that year and the one from the year before. They tasted exactly the same.
It's a miracle.
It was a miracle. Steve.
We're trying to understand,
Yeah.
we're trying to understand
Yeah.
what shalom
Yeah.
means.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, projecting a couple of books ahead, Pinchas
Yeah.
does an extreme violent act.
Yes.
And he is given the covenant of
Breach shalom.
Brit Shalom.
Yeah.
It does seem, at least from that one example, that it is after an extreme violent
Yes.
circumstance.
Yes.
I don't know if that helps us to better understand.
Yeah. Like, this is peace, God? You make a breach shalom after, someone is killed because they're, an Israelite is married to a non-Israelite, or
It's given to the murderer.
cavorting.
Killed.
Yep. Cavorting.
Not married.
Yeah, cavorting. Thank you. I thought that. Absolutely. So, right, like that, what's peace for God? God issues a breach shalom to someone who just, murdered somebody else? Is that what shalom is? Arthur.
So there's a prayer list, a series of good deeds mitzvot. It says, but the greatest mitzvah of all is helping resolve peace between one person and another person. So there's a long list of things.
Yeah.
Giving to charity, visiting the poor.
Sure.
Releasing the tax. I mean, serious stuff. But in this particular prayer, it says that the top, which I would say is the hardest
Yeah.
of them all, is to take people, two people who don't get along,
Yeah.
and find some way for them to get along.
Yeah.
And so I think, when I hear about peace, I think about struggle internally, which was Jackie was referring to. We have struggles, all of us internally, and we have struggles with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's communities that have wars against each other, like now.
It's not pretty.
And
It's-
so I think of peace as, and in Steve's example, there was a threat to the community in that story, as the story considers it,
Yep.
by that sin, and Pinchas restored
Order.
order. So, again, that's another story of conflict,
Yep.
resolve.
Yep.
Not the way we like to resolve conflict.
Not the way we think of it as should be restored.
But I think of peace as resolution of conflict, whether it's
Yeah.
internal
You're
or
right.
between each other. And I think it's very difficult because I think we're more comfortable with conflict.
We're more used to it.
Right, maybe, right. We aspire to peace, but when the rubber hits the road, right, conflict rules. It really does. It's a human proclivity to be tribal, to be jealous, to be threatened, to live in fear. That's where conflict stems from. It's the fear, right? And sometimes normalize conflict because this is the way we restore order. But there are consequences to war, as we very well know, right? So there's consequences. This is not a judgment on what's happening. I'm not giving my political opinion here. But, okay, Hezbollah is throwing missiles into Israel. Israel is bombing Beirut. Okay. Pressuring the government to distance itself from Hezbollah. In the process, people are dying. Innocent people are dying. Now, are we going for long game shalom? Or are we what's happening in the short term, and what are the generational reverberations of such actions? How do leaders manage those things? It's, by the way, temple life, right? There's some things that need to happen in the moment that can be very disruptive, that might lead to a greater peace, but to what cost, right? It's all, that's the job, the hard job of leadership, both, by the way, staff, rabbis, staff, and also lay leaders. How do we create some kind of shleimut in an imperfect community? We are a grazmita. We are a salad, right? Of two congregations coming together, lots of different perspectives, lots, nuts. Lots of different nuts in there. Didn't mean that in any dismissive way, Lots of raisins and nuts and all. It's great, right? We're all together, and we have to sort of create this sense of shleimut, which is not perfect. It'll never be perfect. Sorry? It's a trail mix. It's a trail mix. David.
I said earlier that completion had to do with time.
Yeah.
The thing about peace is that you achieve it at a moment in time. It's never permanent. The only example of permanent peace, when we do the threefold benediction at the end.
Yeah.
The last benediction is peace, but that's really the peace of the grave. That's when you have peace forever.
Well, right. Peace is, I think Amos Oz once said, peace is a dream, an unfulfilled dream, and it'll never be fulfilled, which is a terrible thing to think. But the peace that, as we understand it on a surface level, that's the dream. The perfect peace is not real. That's the world as it should be. The world as it is never going to be that peace. So
peace. So we seek moments of peace. We try to extend that moment as long as possible. But peace is not a permanent notion, except the peace of the grave.
I haven't thought about it that way. I would say that peace is moments. And I think Judaism is beautiful in creating a curriculum for lots of moments that add up to a sense of shleimut. Even the hard moments, right? Death. The ritual that goes around death is hard, but it creates shleimut. Let's keep looking at peace. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
Thinking about perfection.
Yeah.
Most people are striving to be perfect.
Yes.
But when I think of perfection, the most perfect thing I can think about is a child being born, a newborn baby. Isn't she perfect?
Yes.
Grandma, mother, father.
Yes.
But
No original sin. I don't believe that.
what being here is starting with perfection.
Yes.
And then as that child grows, that perfection fades away.
Yeah.
All the things that happen
Right.
in the world, family,
exposure to life, to the imperfections, right? Once you set things into motion, that's what God, Adam and Eve, right? God thought that was Garden of Eden, and then it's like, oh no, don't take the apple. That wasn't the plan, right? It all starts with the dream, and then we have to live the reality, and the reality is okay as long as we accept that the reality is not perfection. If we don't hold ourselves to that, yeah.
Yeah, I like what David said. I agree that I think of peace and justice being two things that you never reach them, but you always work toward them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always moving and shifting, and there's no permanence to either one. And when we start looking away from either one, they shift.
That's it. That's life. It is not up to us to finish the job right, finish the work, but we can't desist from it either. I mean, you're just speaking the words of the rabbis. You got that. It's one of the greatest hits, right? Lo alecha, one of the greatest hits. Okay, look at page 2. Rabbi Shimon says, great is peace. All blessings are included in it. The Lord gives strength to God's people. The Lord will bless God's people with peace. Hizkiah says, Gadol Shalom. All this is Gadol Shalom, Gadol Shalom. Peace is great. Seek peace and then pursue it. Hizkiah says, peace is great. Bottom of page 2. As regarding all the journeys is written, they traveled, they encamped. They traveled in dispute and they encamped in dispute. Who are we talking about? Israelites, right? Okay, so they were all had different ideas. They were always complaining. And yet, when they all came before Mount Sinai, they became a single encampment. That is why it's written, by the way, the English does not reflect the Hebrew. Israel encamped there. Vayichan Sham Yisrael. It is not written, Israel encamped there. I know it sounds like the same thing. Vayuchanu Sham B'nei Yisrael. What they're trying to say is, in the Hebrew of the first one, it's Israel encamped as one people. Not even as lots of people, not Am Yisrael, just Israel. That was it. And so there's a sense of unity that was important. A single encampment. Vayichan Sham Yisrael. All of Israel encamped there, as opposed to the children of Israel encamped there. People. Somehow, in unity, they agreed they could all be different and yet unified. Look at the Bar Kapara said. Great is peace. If the supernal beings, by the way, supernal, how do you translate that? There's the temporal,
Divine.
There's divine, right? Those who kind of live in the heavenly body. If the supernal beings who do not have jealousy, hatred, rivalry, strife, quarrels, dispute, or evil eye require peace, even them, the earthly beings who have all these traits, all the more so, they need peace. Yossi Galili said, great is peace, as even in times of war, one opens only with peace. Even in times of war, when you approach a city to wage war against it, you shall call to it for peace. That's the first effort. You don't go, you intend to go to war, but you actually ask for peace first. Rabbi Mani of Sha'av says, great is peace as all the blessings, goodness, and consolations that the Holy One, blessed be God, brings upon Israel conclude with peace. And then, of course, our text. In the recitation of the Shema, who spreads a canopy of peace. Now, you guys, these are the greatest hits too. You remember these, right? Right? Hashkivenu, right? Priestly blessing. We're just talking about that. Vayivarechecha. All of these ideas of peace. This is the law of the burnt offering, the law of this, right? We read this, the meal offering, the sin offering, guilt offering, and then finally, the law of the peace offering. So, I have provided a source only regarding individual offerings. From where it is derived regarding communal offerings, we don't have to go through that. It ends with the peace offering. Okay, peace ends with this offering. that is a salad of all the other offerings that are messy, blood, fat, sin, guilt. All of the peaceful offering, the free will offering, is the one that is the base of the big salad. So then the rabbis say, great is peace, as when the Messianic king comes, God will open only with peace. As it is stated, how pleasant are the feet of the herald on the mountains announcing peace. So, I love this comment on page 5 by Rabbi Avital Hochstein, who says, a careful reading reveals a fascinating shift here. She's talking about just that last text I just read about the Messiah. Unlike the previous sequence of homilies that focused on peace as a seal or conclusion, the shlamim, the kind of the final part of the salad, this midrash ends by highlighting peace as an opening. God will open with peace. Peace is great, not only because it is a fitting final chord or a proper bottom line, but because it is the very first word of redemption. This midrash describes the greatness of peace by returning to and expanding upon the concept of wholeness, shlemut. Peace is great because it is all-encompassing. It is both the opening and the closing. It creates a whole by enveloping life from beginning to end. In this midrashic move, the shlamim, the whole, shalem, shlamim meaning the offerings, the whole, shalem, and peace, shalom, merge into three unified entities, interchangeable and perhaps even identical. Stay with this page for a second. Reactions to the idea of opening and closing with peace. What's the difference? And can you have both? And what's in between?
I'm thinking about Shabbat and the cycle of the weeks. So we finish the week with Shabbat,
Yeah.
right? And then we start the week
Yes.
with Shabbat.
We open the candles. We open with candles. We close with candles. We Havdalah. Lovely. Yeah.
I don't know if this really fits, but I keep thinking about, I guess there's a, Maimonides has this interpretation of the lion and the lamb, meaning the more aggressive powerful nations will, get along with the more vulnerable nations.
Mm-hmm.
That's Maimonides' take on that passage in Isaiah, but it's rolling around in my mind as we talk about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. This. Then you can eat the salad. Yeah. I mean, Judaism in the prayers, we have this. It's kind of like my Israeli teacher in rabbinical school called it a prayer sandwich, because Israelis can't say sandwich, no W in Hebrew. So sandwich. Sandwich is you open with Baruch Atah Adonai, and you close with Baruch Atah Adonai. I mean, not all prayers work this way, but many do. You open and you close with this blessing. It's what's in between which is difficult. and right, so how, and maybe this is rhetorical, but how do we open ourselves into the world with peace? How do I open dialogue, open encounter with peace? And how do I close the encounter with peace? Even with, if in what's in between is a very messy salad. And that's the challenge. That's really the work. Working with communities here in Cleveland, and we disagree on a lot, but we're working together to combat hate and violence. working with an Islamic community in Solon, and there is so much tension right now with what's going on in Israel. And we are still trying to deal with the hate that's happening right here. And I feel like this is the biggest challenge of interfaith relationships right now, is Jews and Muslims. So hard. And yet, I feel a sense of shleimut, because we're still holding on to each other. We still wish each other happy holidays. We still celebrate each other's children's successes and joys. And yet, their community often says, why are you talking with a Zionist? And our community is saying, why are you talking with murderers and terrorists? And yet, there's something that's trying to hold this all together. This messy fruit and nut salad, grismita, very messy. How do you open with peace, and how do you close with peace? How do you walk in life with people, even in disagreement, and hold that peace? Go ahead, Michael.
I'm thinking about the sandwich.
The sandwich.
I was just thinking about this last night, why the trilogy is, why it's three, right? Because there's a beginning and there's an end and there's a middle.
Right.
And the middle is the tension,
Yes.
right? So we start off with a situation which you could say is who knows, but there's some kind of tension introduced, and then there has to be some wrestling. If I go back to the meaning of Israel, there's some wrestling,
Absolutely.
and then there is some sort of resolution.
Yes.
And it also makes me think of the two different threads of Buddhism, the Hinayana and the Mahayana. I mean, basically what someone said, anybody can be serene in a monastery. Right.
Yeah.
But when you actually go out into the world,
That's what
tests your serenity.
That's the test.
And in order to get back to serenity, you have to wrestle with the reality of the kitchen sink, and there is no way around that. You cannot get to serenity in the reality,
Yes.
the Mishigas, whatever, and without wrestling with it, right?
Absolutely. It's so messy. It's so perfect. Monastery life is a beautiful life. It is not life. It is not real life. It's not when the rubber hits the road. And that's the hard work. And people are not willing to do the work today to deal with the salad stuff in the middle. Cindy.
Peace as an opening. I'm thinking of the word armistice.
Mm-hmm.
We have armistice finally, that's a form of peace, but the real work begins. Like in World War II, we had armistice, and think of all the work we had to do
Yes.
to bring the enemies, if you will, together.
Yes, and nobody sees, all the background work, right? All the conversations. That's the hard stuff. That is the hard stuff. And if it works well, then a lot of people see the surface stuff. They, wow, this is going pretty well. Like, they're amazing. But you don't see the hard work. Hard work is tough. By the way, hard work with our children, hard work with our partners. That's the salad too, right? I mean, it's great to celebrate birthdays and anniversaries and all of that, but there's lots of nuts and fruit in between. There's lots of grismita. There's lots of salad. I want to finish with one thing here. And this is, for some of you who've studied with me before, this is my favorite part of the Passover Seder. It won't be what you think it is. It's not die. Okay. We are at Shabbat HaGadol, so I thought it was appropriate to say Gadol HaShalom, right? The great peace. This is Shabbat HaGadol. It is the Shabbat immediately preceding Passover. How can I do any with you today if I don't touch on Passover. Okay, so Nancy's heard me talk about this every once in a while, but it's like it is my all-time favorite part of the Passover Seder, and it's a part that not everybody is aware of. Okay, because it's not in a lot of Haggadot. It's not in a lot of Haggadahs. It might be in yours, but it's often more in the traditional ones. If you have the Hartman one, that's the one I took from. All right. Cup of Elijah. What happens with Elijah? When we welcome Elijah, what do? Open the door. And why do we open the door? We welcome Elijah. And why are we welcoming Elijah? So, go ahead, Maida. Symbolizes peace, shalom, and Messiah, right? This was the one prophet to not have been recorded, his death was not recorded. And so there's this sense of like maybe ephemeral quality to the great Elijah. And then, of course, we sing. Eliyahu HaNavi. Okay, so, and of course we have the cup of wine or grape juice, which is mysteriously consumed by Elijah. Have you seen the ones where they have the button on the stem? And it actually drains into the, yes, it really, and the kids are like, whoa, this is so cool. I love Judaism. Okay. It's true. There's a place to get them. Okay, I've seen them. Okay, so, but what we don't always see and may not be in your Seder is these are the actual words you're supposed to say when you open the door to welcome Elijah. Oh, yeah. The drama. That was perfect timing. All right. Shpoch hamatcha. Pour out. Yes. You open the door. You stand up. And you say, pour out your fury on the nations that do not know you. Read with me together. Let's do it. Pour out your fury on the nations that do not know you, upon the kingdoms that do not invoke your name, for they have devoured Jacob and desolated his home. Pour out your wrath on them. May your blazing anger overtake them. Pursue them in wrath and destroy them from under the heavens of Adonai.
That's peaceful.
Eliyahu. So, okay, so what do you think? What's going on here? Go ahead, Aaron, Arthur.
So I think these verses make a lot of sense for 2,000 years from the destruction of the temple to 1948. You don't have an air force, you don't have an army.
Yeah.
You say these things,
Yeah.
and you're a victim, after assault,
Yeah.
murder. And so in the safety of the Seder, we stand up and say, we've had it. No more.
No more.
But not now. I don't think, actually, it's not my favorite part of the Haggadah,
Yeah.
because now we do have an air force.
Yes.
You say these things, and
Now there's Jewish power.
you're sending the air force out to destroy anyone who gives you any grief.
Now there's Jewish power. So this can be used if in the wrong hands, right? It's from the Psalms, right? And from Lamentations. Look at the side little bar here. It was not until the bloody crusades that biblical verses of divine anger were added to the Haggadah. For pogroms typically occurred on Easter and Passover. Okay, so context.
But we are pouring out our wrath on those who
We
devour
are
Jacob.
pouring out our wrath, right?
So it feels uncomfortable to call on this today.
To use this language to stand up and say, pour out your fury on the nations that do not know you, because we can do that now, perhaps.
It makes more sense to say if you can't.
If you can't, if you feel helpless.
Yeah.
There are enemies still out there, right? We know. I mean, for those of you who were here last night with Rabbi Dadoon, she spoke a lot to this, right? This sense of Jews being treated as object as opposed to Jews as subject. That we are still victims, but it's complicated now that we have a powerful Air Force. It's complicated. It's not easy. It doesn't mean one, sort of eradicates or erases the other concern. We can have anti-Semitism and we can have Jewish power in the Middle East, which we might or may not agree with, how they use that power. But that's what makes this time specifically complicated, right? Jews are still feeling victimized. See West Bloomfield, Michigan, right? Or see Bondi Beach or Washington, D.C. That's still happening. So we still have adversaries. But yeah, what does it mean to, ask God to pour out the wrath? It's very strong. And so I close with Holocaust scholar on page 7, Deborah Lipstadt, who writes of this Seder moment. And I think, Arthur, she's talking to the former part of your comments, which is about consider the time, consider the victimization, consider the powerlessness. She writes, many Seder participants are decidedly uncomfortable with the short paragraph. We just talked about that, right? By the way, some of you got uncomfortable. It's okay. Some modern Haggadot deleted. I, on the other hand, love it. From one brief shining moment, the Jew stood tall. The playing field was more than equal as the Jew turned to the judge of all the earth, the same judge that Abraham had turned to in Genesis, called upon that judge to do justice, and then so suddenly as it began, it ended. The door was shut. The Jew sat down. The Seder continued. And all returned as it had been and would remain for too many years. So, okay. Gadol HaShalom. Wholeness in a moment when you're supposed to be calling for peace in Elijah, you stand up and you talk about God's wrath. But Shlemut is not empty prayers and empty words. Shlemut is recognizing that we're dealing with a big salad of lots of competing forces and ideas and of victimization and of triumph and of power and messiness, blood, and splattered on the altar, blood splattered in the Middle East, and yet L'Shana Haba b'Yushalayim, next year in Jerusalem. Yerushalayim. Shalem. Yerushalayim. The city of peace. Inheritor, Yerusha, of peace. We end with Yerushalayim. That it's like this container, messiness, we're trying to hold it together, this vision that we can't exactly reach, and yet we can't not continue to strive for, a vision in which Jews themselves disagree on how to reach that peace, and yet holding on in that container together, even at a Seder where we might differ with political views and everything. This, even in a temple where we might disagree, we have to sort of create shlemut. Somehow, we have to figure out how to move together in shlemut. And that is possible, just maybe not in the fairy tale way, in a real and, life, human-based way. Have a good week. Shabbat Shalom. Happy to talk. I know not everybody got to ask their questions. Why don't I know?
Did you know Judy?
Are they members?
I thought they went to Fairmont for many, many years, but maybe not.
Landi?
Landis. Yeah,
didn't
we
see her.
raised our daughters
You're
together.
kidding.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
I'm
she
sorry
was-
to hear that.
I know, I thought
I would look in, I have to look in our database and see.
Yeah, I saw it in, when I went to last Saturday's first Saturday service.
Yes.
It was in the month of mourning. Her
Okay,
name was-
I will look it up. Thank you.
Yeah, but
I'm
thank
so
you.
sorry. I'm sorry for your
Yeah.
loss. Yeah.
But thanks for this.
Just want to say thank you. Thanks for coming, guys.
Interesting hearing your version of this and like mine.
Oh, yeah.
Very different, both very interesting. The question is answered.
Oh, good, good. Yeah, it's interesting for the group to, to hear different voices.
We have to finish the story.
Yeah.
I have to finish my story. I got 2 more days of my story to finish.
Which one?
When I was talking to you about my dad.
Oh, yes.
I got one more thing to
Okay.
tell. I'll call.
Okay.
You're a busy boy. It's all right.
If you want to hang out a little bit, I can do
I
it.
did find something on YouTube. I have the voice of Shepherd introducing Jeter as his last name. I've been trying to recreate the voice. Derek Jeter.
I think as long as you have the shanks on you.
Whether you do what you do or you don't do what you do, that's what it says. But, I guess I interpret it as, students are not acceptable.
I'll have to think about it.
I like it.
I appreciate it.
No problem. I have other topics, but they're not as timely and addressed.
Well, I've been thinking about you, and I thought we could probably meet and just reconnect. It's been a while since to hear how you're doing. And, I don't want to take it for granted just because I see you all the time. That, you're okay, or what's going on in your life. And, base. So maybe after Passover?
Absolutely. Yeah, my interest in speaking to you is more about a operational issue at the synagogue.
That's fine. No, I'm, whatever it is, I was just also thinking about.
Thank you.
Just checking
and
in.
Of course, you and your family have been going through quite a bit.
Yeah.
How do you feel like your family is doing, and
We're okay, hey.
It was funny, and this is it. My parents used to raise sheep,
Yes.
and the Greek Orthodox community would want to come and take little lambs.
Yeah.
And they would play with them as pets for like a month, and then slaughter them ritually in front of all their children.
Oh my God.
You're so polite, you don't So, my parents wouldn't sell them.
Yeah, yeah.
And they would come and steal them out of the fields.
okay, well, that's not a very Christian thing to be doing. Like breaking one commandment in order to fulfill another.
Desperate to be able to do that.
To answer your question, and first of all, I want to thank you for the note that you wrote to Leah. It was very, you guys have been lovely. Yeah, it's been a process. The Shiva process really worked. I mean, it's okay. He came last night. He's doing okay. It's a big time adjustment. It's a big time adjustment. She did a memory care. She took a fall, and she got a subdural hematoma, and she never recovered from it. So she took a fall. She was okay. So that's why we decided. Yeah, she just went out to get her hair done and she got her nails done. She walks out, and my father-in-law turns around for a minute just to get the card. She takes a nosedive into the pavement. So big brain bleed, never recovered. So thanks for asking. So, but we're okay. We're okay. You know, people have been incredibly kind. We've gotten a lot of wonderful, a lot of food. We have so much food. So you know, we have to get rid of the food now because of Passover. But
I was directing people like, send us soup.
yes, yes.
And then not, portion it out, because there's no way I can eat all of this stuff. Don't send me stuff that I can't find.
Yeah. That's very practical.